I should have known something was wrong when my maid of honor couldn't look me in the eye on my wedding morning. Laura had been my best friend since we were 14 years old, the kind of friend who knew every secret, every dream, every fear I'd ever whispered in the dark. We'd practiced writing our married names in high school notebooks, been each other's first call through every breakup and breakthrough. When Michael proposed to me on that beach in Cape Cod, Laura was the first person I called, even before my mother. She screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. So when she walked into my bridal suite that June morning with coffee and croissants, I didn't question the slight tremor in her hands. I thought she was just emotional. We both were. This was the day we'd been planning since we were girls, wasn't it? The fairy tale come true. "You look absolutely perfect," she said, adjusting my veil with those same hands that had braided my hair at sleepovers, held mine during my father's funeral, helped me move into 4 different apartments. Her voice caught on the last word, and I saw tears in her eyes. "Don't you dare make me cry," I laughed, squeezing her hand. "We haven't even done photos yet." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I should have noticed. God, I should have noticed so many things. The ceremony was everything I'd dreamed of. My childhood church filled with white roses and candlelight, my mother weeping in the front pew, Michael waiting for me at the altar in his navy suit with that crooked smile that had made me fall in love with him 3 years ago. Laura stood beside me in dusty rose silk, holding my bouquet, watching as I promised forever to the man I thought I knew. "I do," I said, my voice clear and certain. "I do," Michael echoed, and for just a fraction of a second I thought I saw him glance past me, at Laura. No, I pushed the thought away immediately, pre-wedding jitters, paranoia. Everyone says you imagine things on your wedding day, that the stress makes you see problems that aren't there. The reception was perfect, too. We'd rented the estate where Michael's parents had gotten married 40 years ago, a sprawling property in the Berkshires with manicured gardens and a ballroom with crystal chandeliers. We danced our first dance to the same song his parents had chosen, and I felt his heart beating against my cheek and thought, this is it. This is my life now. I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm home. The champagne flowed. The speeches were touching. My college roommate told embarrassing stories. Michael's brother made everyone laugh with tales of their childhood. Laura gave her maid of honor toast, and her voice only broke once when she said, "May you have all the happiness you deserve." At the time, I thought it was beautiful. Later, I would replay those words over and over, wondering what she really meant. By midnight, most of the guests had retired to their rooms. The estate had enough space for our immediate families and the wedding party to stay the night, part of the package that made it feel like a destination wedding without actually leaving Massachusetts. Michael's parents were in the West Wing, my mother in the East, and the bridal suite waited for us on the 3rd floor, decorated with rose petals and champagne on ice. "I'm going to check on my mom," I told Michael, kissing his cheek. "She had too much wine. I'll be up in 10 minutes. "Don't be long, Mrs. Peterson," he said, and the name still sounded surreal and wonderful. My mother was fine, already asleep, snoring softly with her shoes kicked off beside the bed. I tucked a blanket around her, feeling a rush of tenderness. She'd been so strong since Dad died, raising me alone, working 2 jobs to pay for my college. She deserved to see me happy. She deserved to believe her daughter had found what she and Dad had. I walked back through the quiet hallways, past family photos of strangers, past arrangements of roses that would be wilted by morning. The house was beautiful in the silence, all dark wood and soft lighting. I heard a door close somewhere above me and smiled, thinking Michael must have gone up to the suite already. But when I reached the 3rd floor, our door was still open. The room was empty, rose petals untouched, champagne warming in its bucket. I stood there for a moment, confused. Then I heard it, a sound from down the hall. A woman's laugh, quickly muffled. Coming from the room Laura was staying in. My heart started beating faster, though I couldn't have said why. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Laura was probably on the phone with her boyfriend, the one who hadn't been able to make it to the wedding because of work. That's all it was. But my feet were already moving down the hallway. The old floorboards creaked under my wedding heels, custom dyed to match my dress, another detail I'd obsessed over for months. Details that seemed so important yesterday and so meaningless now. I stopped outside Laura's door. It wasn't closed all the way. Just slightly ajar, as if someone had pulled it shut without checking that it latched. I should have walked away. I should have gone back to my empty bridal suite and waited for my husband. But something in my chest had gone cold and tight, and my hand was already reaching for the door. I pushed it open slowly, quietly. The room was dark except for a sliver of moonlight through the curtains. At first, I couldn't make sense of what I was seeing, just shapes and shadows, the rustle of fabric, the smell of perfume and champagne, and something else I couldn't name. Then my eyes adjusted and I saw them. Michael, my husband of 6 hours. Shirtless, his belt unbuckled, leaning over the bed where Laura sat with her bridesmaid dress pooled around her waist, her lipstick smeared, her hair falling out of the updo I'd helped her pin that morning. They were kissing. My husband was kissing my best friend in the darkness while I stood there in my wedding dress, watching my entire life collapse in slow motion. I must have made a sound, a gasp, a sob, something, because they broke apart. Michael's head whipped toward the door, his eyes going wide. Laura's hands flew to her mouth. "Sweetheart," Michael started, stumbling backward, reaching for his shirt. "This isn't, we were just, don't." The word came out of me like a gunshot, sharp and final. "Don't you dare." Laura was crying now, her face crumpling. "I'm so sorry, oh God, I'm so sorry. We didn't mean for this to happen. We tried to stop." "Tried to stop." I heard my voice rising, echoing off the walls. "When did you try to stop? Before or after I married him? Before or after you stood next to me at that altar?" Michael was buttoning his shirt with shaking hands. "Please let me explain. It just happened. We never planned." "How long?" I asked. My voice had gone cold now, dead. I sounded like a stranger to myself. "How long has this been going on?" They looked at each other, and that look told me everything. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness at a wedding after too much champagne. This was a pattern, a secret, a betrayal that had roots. "Since December," Laura whispered, and I watched her face crumble as she said it. "Since your Christmas party." December. 6 months. Half a year of lies while I planned a wedding, chose flowers, addressed invitations, smiled for engagement photos. 6 months of Laura helping me pick out my dress, throwing me a bridal shower, listening to me worry about seating charts and dinner menus. 6 months of Michael kissing me goodnight and then, what? Texting her, meeting her while I was at work. The room started spinning. I reached for the doorframe to steady myself. "Get out," I said quietly. "Please, if we could just talk." Michael took a step toward me. "Get out." I screamed at this time, loud enough that I heard doors opening down the hall, footsteps, voices asking what was wrong. I didn't wait to see who came. I turned and ran, as much as you can run in a wedding dress and heels, down the hallway, down the stairs, through the ballroom that still smelled like roses and cake, out into the garden where we'd said our vows just hours ago. The night air was cool on my skin. I kicked off my shoes and kept walking, past the white chairs still arranged in rows, past the arbor covered in flowers, out onto the lawn that stretched toward the dark woods beyond. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stop moving or I would shatter completely. I heard someone calling my name behind me, my mother's voice, scared and confused, but I didn't turn around. I walked until I reached a small pond at the edge of the property, its surface reflecting the moon like broken glass. That's where I finally stopped. That's where I stood in my custom wedding dress with its hand-sewn lace and pearl buttons, looking at my reflection in the dark water, and let myself break. I didn't go back to the estate that night. My mother found me by the pond an hour later and drove me to a hotel without asking questions. She helped me out of my dress, hung it carefully in the closet like it was something precious rather than a costume from the worst night of my life, and held me while I cried until I had nothing left. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Michael, Laura, Michael's mother, my college roommate asking what happened, the wedding photographer asking when I wanted to schedule our day after session. I blocked them all except my mother and my lawyer. Yes, I called a lawyer before I called anyone else. Before I called Michael back, before I read Laura's apologetic text messages, before I did anything except shower and put on the clothes my mother had retrieved from the bridal suite while I slept. I called my father's old friend Richard, who specialized in family law, and I said 5 words. I need an annulment. Today. Tell me everything, Richard said gently, and I did, all of it, the discovery, the confession, the 6 months of lies. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I'll draw up the papers," he said. "Massachusetts allows annulment for fraud. This qualifies. You'll need to not consummate the marriage." "That won't be a problem," I said flatly. By Monday afternoon, I had the papers. By Tuesday, Michael had been served. By Wednesday, I'd packed up our apartment. Well, my mother and my cousin helped while I sat on the couch in a daze, pointing at things and saying mine or his or I don't care. Michael tried to see me. He showed up at my mother's house where I was staying, stood on the porch with flowers, roses, because he still didn't understand that roses were ruined for me now, and begged me to let him explain. My mother answered the door. "My daughter doesn't want to see you. If you come back, I'm calling the police." I watched from the upstairs window as he stood there for a few more minutes, then got in his car and drove away. I felt nothing. That was the strangest part. I'd expected to feel rage or grief or something big and dramatic. Instead, I just felt empty, hollowed out, like someone had reached inside me and removed something essential. Laura sent a letter. An actual handwritten letter, like this was a period drama and not my real life falling apart. I read the first line. "I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to understand," and threw it away without reading the rest. There was nothing to understand. She'd slept with my fiancé for 6 months, stood beside me at my wedding, and then fucked my husband on my wedding night. What additional context could possibly matter? The annulment went through in record time. Turned out when you have clear evidence of fraud, and Michael didn't contest it, probably out of guilt or maybe just exhaustion, the court can move pretty quickly. 6 months after our wedding that wasn't really a wedding, I received the papers declaring it had never legally existed. It was like someone had erased a chapter from my life. We'd never been married. Those vows meant nothing. That white dress hanging in my closet was just an expensive costume. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like a ghost. For months, I went through the motions. I kept my job at the marketing firm, showed up on time, smiled at my coworkers, pretended everything was fine. I moved into a studio apartment in Somerville. Nothing like the 2-bedroom I'd shared with Michael, but it was mine and mine alone. I bought secondhand furniture, hung prints on the walls, learned to cook for one. My mother worried. My friends worried. Everyone kept asking if I was okay, and I kept saying yes, because what else was I supposed to say? That I'd lost faith in everything. That I looked at every couple and wondered which one of them was cheating. That I couldn't sleep because every time I closed my eyes, I saw them together. "You need to talk to someone," my mother said one Sunday over brunch. "A therapist, someone professional." "I'm fine," I lied. "You're not fine, you're barely eating, you've lost weight." "You look." She stopped herself, but I knew what she was going to say. I looked haunted. That week, I called the therapist my insurance covered. Her name was Dr. Morrison, and she was everything a therapist is supposed to be: calm, non-judgmental, wearing comfortable clothes and sitting in a chair across from a couch that was actually comfortable. "Tell me why you're here," she said in our first session. "My fiancé was sleeping with my maid of honor," I said. "I found out on my wedding night." She didn't react with shock or pity, just nodded like this was a story she'd heard variations of before. "And how are you coping?" "I got an annulment. I moved out, I'm handling it." "That's how you're managing the logistics," she said gently. I asked how you're coping emotionally. I opened my mouth to say I was fine, and instead I started crying. Not the pretty, delicate crying from movies. The ugly kind with gasping sobs and a running nose and sounds I didn't know I could make. I cried for 45 minutes straight while Dr. Morrison sat quietly and pushed tissues across the table. "I trusted them," I finally managed to say. "Both of them, more than anyone in the world, and they betrayed you in the deepest way possible," Dr. Morrison finished. "And now you're questioning whether you can trust your own judgment." Yes, that was it exactly. How could I trust anyone ever again when I'd been so catastrophically wrong about the 2 people closest to me? "It's not your fault," Dr. Morrison said, and I must have made a skeptical face because she continued firmly. "I mean it. You didn't make them do this. You didn't miss some obvious red flag that would have prevented it. Sometimes people we love make terrible choices, and there's nothing we could have done differently." I wanted to believe her. Over the next few months of weekly sessions, I slowly started to. I wish I could say I had some dramatic moment of healing, some clear turning point where I woke up and felt better. But recovery wasn't like that. It was slow and non-linear. Some days I felt strong and independent. Other days I couldn't get out of bed. Through the grapevine, my college roommate, who was still friends with Michael's brother, I heard that Michael and Laura had tried to make it work. They'd moved in together, apparently believing that their relationship had been worth destroying everything for. It lasted 4 months. According to the grapevine, they fought constantly. Laura couldn't trust him, imagine that. She'd seen firsthand what kind of person he was, how easily he could lie, and apparently it turned out that knowledge didn't make for a great foundation. Michael, meanwhile, couldn't handle the guilt or the social fallout. All their friends had sided with me. His family was horrified. Even his own mother had stopped speaking to him for a while. When I heard they'd broken up, I waited to feel vindicated. Satisfied, something. Instead, I just felt tired. Does it matter, I asked Dr. Morrison in our session that week, whether they're together or not? Does it matter to you? She asked back. I don't know, I thought I'd want them to suffer, but honestly, I just want to stop thinking about them altogether. That's healthy, she said. That's you starting to move forward. Moving forward. It sounded so simple when she said it. 18 months after the wedding that wasn't, I went on my first date. His name was David, and we'd met at a work conference. He was in a similar field, smart without being arrogant, easy to talk to. He'd asked for my number, and I'd almost said no. Almost gave him some excuse about being too busy or not interested or any of the 1,000 ways we let people down gently. But Dr. Morrison's voice was in my head. You can't let what they did close you off to every possibility. So I said yes, and we went to dinner at a small Italian place in the North End, and he made me laugh talking about his disastrous attempt to make homemade pasta. He asked about my work, my interests, actually listened to the answers. He didn't press when I said I'd been through a difficult breakup and wasn't ready to talk about details. Everyone's got history, he said, shrugging. I'm divorced, wasn't pretty, but I'm here anyway. I liked that. The acknowledgement that we all carry damage, but we show up anyway. We dated casually for a few months, dinners, movies, long walks along the Charles River. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, never made me feel like I needed to explain my caution. When I finally told him the full story one night over wine on my couch, he was quiet for a long time. That's brutal, he finally said. I'm so sorry that happened to you. Not, I can't believe they'd do that, or you must have been devastated, just acknowledgement and empathy. It was exactly what I needed. David and I dated for almost a year before I realized something. I wasn't in love with him. I cared about him. I enjoyed his company. But that spark, that deep certainty I'd felt with Michael, I didn't feel it, and I didn't know if that was because it wasn't there or because I was too scared to feel it. I think we should take a break, I told him one evening, and I could see he'd been expecting it. You're still healing, he said, not unkindly. I get it. You deserve someone who's all in, I said. And I'm not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever be. You will be, he said, kissing my forehead. Just maybe not with me. We parted as friends, and I went home and cried, but it was a different kind of crying. Not the desperate, broken sobs from that first year, just quiet tears for something that could have worked if the timing had been different, if I'd been different. 2 years after the wedding, I got a Facebook message from Laura. I almost deleted it without reading. I'd blocked her on everything else, but apparently she'd created a new account just to reach me. The preview showed just the first line. I know I have no right to contact you, but... I stared at that preview for 3 days before, finally, against my better judgment, I opened it. The message was long paragraphs of apology, explanation, self-flagellation. She'd been in therapy, she wrote. She'd been dealing with her own issues, feeling invisible, seeking validation in all the wrong places, making terrible choices. She knew it didn't excuse what she'd done. She knew I probably hated her. She just wanted me to know she was sorry, truly sorry, and she'd learned from it. At the end, she wrote, You were the best friend I ever had, and I destroyed that. I destroyed you. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I hope you're happy. I hope you found people who deserve you. I hope someday you can forgive me, but I'll understand if you never do. I read it twice. Then I closed the message without responding. Dr. Morrison asked me in our next session how I felt about it. I don't feel anything, I said, surprised by my own honesty. It's like she's a stranger now, someone I used to know in another life. And the apology? Too late, too little, I don't need it anymore. That was true. Somewhere in the past 2 years, I'd stopped needing their apologies or explanations. I'd stopped needing anything from them at all. They'd become footnotes in my story rather than the story itself. I met James on a completely ordinary Tuesday in October, 3 years and 4 months after my wedding night. I was at a coffee shop near my office, laptop open, trying to finish a presentation. The place was crowded, and when he asked if he could share my table, I almost said no. I valued my alone time, my carefully constructed boundaries. But something made me look up, and when I did, I saw kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a self-deprecating smile. "Sure," I heard myself say. We worked in silence for 20 minutes before he broke it. "I'm sorry, but I have to ask, is that a presentation on sustainable marketing practices?" "You can read upside down," I asked, half impressed, half mortified. "Only when I'm procrastinating on my own work." He grinned. "I'm James. I work for a nonprofit focused on environmental advocacy. We're always looking for better ways to reach people." We talked for an hour, then another. My presentation went unfinished, but I didn't care. There was something about him, not the breathless excitement I'd felt with Michael, but something steadier. Warmer, like coming home after a long trip. We exchanged numbers. He texted me that evening. I probably should have waited 3 days to seem cool, but I really enjoyed our conversation. "Coffee again sometime." I smiled at my phone, actually smiled, something that had felt rare for so long, and wrote back, "How about tomorrow?" Our relationship built slowly, carefully. James knew about my past. I told him early on, wanting to be honest, wanting to see if it would scare him away. He listened to the whole story without interrupting, and when I finished, he just reached across the table and took my hand. "That's a lot to carry," he said. "Thank you for trusting me with it." He didn't try to fix it or tell me it would all be okay. He just acknowledged it and moved forward. That meant everything. With James, I learned what healthy love looked like. He didn't complete me. I'd learned to be complete on my own. He just complimented me. We kept our own apartments for the first year, our own friends, our own lives. We didn't rush. We didn't make grand promises. We just showed up consistently, honestly, choosing each other every day. When he finally asked me to move in with him, 2 years into our relationship, I said yes without hesitation. When he proposed a year after that, on a quiet Sunday morning in our apartment, no grand gestures, just, "I love you and I want to build a life with you," I said yes again. This time, I knew what I was saying yes to. We got married at City Hall on a Thursday afternoon with just our parents and my cousin as witnesses. I wore a simple cream dress I'd bought the week before. James wore the suit he wore to work. There were no flowers, no reception, no maid of honor. Afterward, we had dinner at our favorite restaurant and went home to the life we'd already built together. It wasn't the fairy tale I'd imagined when I was young. It was better. It was real. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret what happened, if I wish I could go back and have the wedding I'd planned, the marriage I'd thought I wanted. And the honest answer is no. That night destroyed me. It destroyed my faith in people, in love, in my own judgment. It sent me into a dark place I wasn't sure I'd climb out of. But it also taught me things I might never have learned otherwise. It taught me that I was stronger than I knew, that I could survive the worst betrayal and come out the other side, that I didn't need someone to complete me. I needed someone who respected the person I'd already become. It taught me the difference between passion and partnership, between the intoxicating rush of falling and the steady comfort of building. It taught me that the people who hurt you don't get to define your story. You do. 5 years after that terrible wedding night, I ran into Michael at a bookstore. We literally bumped into each other reaching for the same book on a display table. We both apologized at the same time, then looked up and froze. He looked older, tired. There were lines around his eyes I didn't remember, gray threading through his hair. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi." We stood there awkwardly for a moment. He put the book back on the table like he'd lost interest in it. "How have you been?" he asked. "Good, really good, actually." It was true. "You?" He paused, seeming to really consider the question. "I'm doing okay, working on myself, therapy." Actually being honest for once in my life. I nodded. I didn't know what to say to that. "I heard you got married," he continued. "I'm happy for you, genuinely." "Thank you." "I'm sorry," he said suddenly, urgently. "I know I said it before, but I need to say it again. What I did was unforgivable. You deserved so much better. You deserved everything, and his voice cracked. I threw it away for something that wasn't even real. I've regretted it every single day since. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized I didn't feel the anger I'd carried for so long. I just felt nothing, not indifference exactly, more like peace. I appreciate you saying that, I said. I hope you found what you need. I hope I will, he said. Someday. We said goodbye, and I watched him walk away, and I felt that chapter finally, truly close. That night, I came home to James making dinner in our kitchen, dancing badly to music playing from his phone, and I stood in the doorway just watching him for a moment. Hey you, he said, noticing me. How was the bookstore? Interesting, I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind. I'll tell you about it over dinner. Everything okay? He asked, turning to face me, his hands resting on my waist. Yeah, I said, and meant it completely. Everything's perfect. Because it was. Not perfect like a fairy tale or a romance novel. Perfect like real life when you've done the work, made the hard choices, learned who you are and what you deserve. I'd been destroyed once. I'd been shattered into pieces so small I thought I'd never be whole again, but I'd put myself back together. And the woman I'd become, stronger, wiser, more careful with her heart but not closed off to love, she was someone I was proud to be. That wedding night was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was also, in a strange way, one of the best. Because it freed me to find this, a quiet Tuesday evening with a man who loved me honestly, in a life I'd built on my own terms, with a heart that had broken and healed and learned to trust again. Not the fairy tale, something better, something real.